Welcome to the Tabletop Travel Guide, the podcast where we explore fictional worlds right from the comfort of our own table. For this off-week session, we've got something a little different planned for you. We will be doing an interview with myself and Tyler and Ryan, facilitated by our friend Keisha, who will be playing the role of Felicity Flameweather, a fabulous news anchor from Golarion. So stick with us today, guys. You're going to learn a little bit more about us and how we play. And then we'll see you next week for our regularly scheduled content.
Welcome to Good Evening Golarion. I'm your host, Felicity Flameweather, and this is Adventurer Spotlight. Tonight we have 3 adventurers with us, Ryan, Sam, and Tyler, each experienced as players and GMs, which means they both know how to miss every clue given to them, and how sad they make their GM with their idiocy.
That's accurate.
A raving review.
We could start with general things like, how long have you been playing, and how many times have you GM'd? But that's boring, and no one cares.
It's true.
Let's start spicy. Tell me about a session that almost made you quit, either as a player or a GM.
Ooh, I got it. Okay, so, hey, I'm Tyler. As a player, I remember it was one of Chad's campaigns. And
so much chatting in this podcast.
No, I didn't want to quit because of him. It was because 2 of the other players, which were my roommates at the time, hated each other in real life. Mm. So you had one guy who was basically like a Mary Sue lawful good, and a guy who was chaotic evil. I imagine Ryan probably knows both of these people.
I really hope they're not listening to this.
Well, they are, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. But any sort of personal roommate drama just spilled into the game constantly. And because their alignments were different, they were so angry at each other the entire time we were playing. And until the point where the chaotic evil one tried to burn down a building, and then our characters just ended up killing him. And then he brought another character who was the brother. And I'm like, we got it. Nope, this is a mess. Luckily, I did not quit there. He ended up dropping out a little bit after.
It's
but
tough when real life gets involved.
Yeah. Real life drama makes me cringe when it involves that.
The more hilarious part about this is what I thought of involves the same people.
Yes. Okay.
So I started playing with Tyler in college and with all of your roommates. And there was one session where I still have like the Google chat of sidebar with me and Tyler about how pissed I was. But Tyler, had you died at that point, or had your character gone unconscious?
No, we were, and one of those people is the same one. I'm actually talking about a different.
Oh,
campaign.
sorry.
But yeah, we still have the Google
contentious
chat.
People here.
Yeah, several toxic
There
people
are.
in your
Yes.
pastor.
No, that was the one where you were the one constantly reviving them.
Well, yes, I remember that part, but I was like, what were you doing?
I just
remembered
was rolling terribly.
It was the 2 people that were not playing in a way that was super helpful, and so then they kept going down, but my character was the backup and the support character, so then I kept having to like bring people back. And like this was 3.5 at that point, so like it costs you experience to do that. And I was
She
like,
was like
my-
100
Oh, that's right.
Yes, and I was like, my character is going to go down a level because these people cannot figure out how to do anything useful. I was like,
basically the combat, we were in a shrinking box with a person, and I had the most damage output, but I could not roll for shit. So I kept rolling, and Chad is just looking at me like, please roll well. Please roll. And I'm like, 2. And then the other 2 people would be like, we're up. And Chad would attack when they're like, we're down again.
I love it.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
Oh, man. I mean, I guess I didn't realize this. I have a way earlier technical start for RPGs. I had 1 game of D&D in middle school that I rage quit.
Oh, wow.
Because turns out middle schoolers are not good GMs.
That's fair.
And not good, like, friends to play with. So I arrived 3 minutes late to the party. I was handed the rogue. told to face check every door, died 15 minutes into the session, and then proceeded. We didn't have phones at that point, so I just, like, my friend had a computer, and I ended up playing, like, a computer game for the next 3 hours while they all played D&D in the room. So then I rage quit D&D, and I didn't play for, like, 10 years.
Perfect.
Might be too many hormones going on for middle schoolers.
Man, middle school's a hard time, right? Yeah, that did not go well. And then even in college, I was like, I feel like I have a really bad remembrance of this, but I, like, couldn't figure out what that memory was until I actually started rolling dice. I was like, oh.
Like, unlocked a trauma.
Yeah, like, I hated this. Why am I here again? Okay, this is actually kind of fun.
That checks out.
So, Sam and Tyler, as referenced, you are married.
Yes.
Have
we
there ever
officially covered that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think when I joined, you introduced me as
His
your wife.
Yes.
It doesn't get reiterated. So I guess if anyone doesn't know, Sam and Tyler are married.
Sorry out there.
Have you ever got mad at each other in real life over something that happened in Pathfinder? I know that you don't really get mad at each other a lot. You're kind of disgusting.
I think
You're welcome.
I think the one time that I can think of that I got frustrated at you was when you were GMing the
Oh, Tyler gets frustrated with me when I GM all the time.
No.
Like,
No.
not all the time, but like that's when I am my most frustrating because
the
I
downs
don't
are out.
actually know all the rules.
No,
It's my
it
fault.
wasn't even that. It was the one we were, for reference, this is our like Thursday night group, but for whatever reason everybody else was virtual and then me and Sam were at the table, and she had built a murder mystery kind of. And like she built it as in a book, like a whodunit, and as a player, we are all very stupid. So this was a very well done mystery if it wasn't a D&D campaign. So Sam's getting frustrated, we're all getting frustrated, we think we're all a bunch of, and then Sam just looks at me and I'm looking at her and I'm like
That was when I was like, marriage, read my mind. It didn't work.
I'm like,
Back me up.
I'm like, I do not know what you want right now and I don't know what's happening. Like at one point we had to pause. I'm like, what are you trying to do here?
And I was like, I don't know. It's terrible.
It was in a good husband moment, because I remember that, and we all felt bad. Tyler texted all of us after and said, please tell Sam that she did a good job.
Yeah, at the end she's like, I never want to DM again.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it. I'm like, no, players are just infinitely dumber than you expect.
He was like, you're all dumb. Apologize to Sam.
We're all just really dumb.
My biggest challenge with DMing in general is that like I really love plots and I really love characters. Like I write in my spare time, but then like taking all of those really big ideas and then turning them into something with mechanics is really challenging.
Yeah.
So I have great things up here, but then once we get into like people asking questions I wasn't prepared for, or like trying to balance like a challenge like versus easy, like it gets a little rough.
Yeah, you know the saying, like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Like everyone has a session until players actually get involved.
Oh, yeah. You have like the reams, like the book of story ideas, and then your players are like, who's that hobo in the alley? Let's go befriend the hobo. The hobo's our new best friend. Let's have a plot entirely around the hobo. And as the DM, you're just like, why are you here?
Yeah. So I think that was probably my most frustrating with Sam.
I like can't think of anything specific. Like I'll pretend to be frustrated, but I'm usually not really frustrated. I'm just like being annoying.
I also feel,
yeah.
as we've established, I'm kind of a pushover GM, so I don't think there's any point where I've like vindictively murdered anybody, because I'm just
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. So we
Yeah,
keep
not a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
They're
So-
disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody was wondering, that's very true. So we talked about rage quitting.
Yeah.
But I mean, you all have played and GM'd for a very long time. Have you ever felt burnt out on Pathfinder?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Go for it, Ryan.
I mean, I like intentionally space out my big campaigns with like 2 or 3 people. We're very fortunate in our group that we have lots of people who can GM, so no one is thrust like upon as the forever GM.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel exhausted at the end of every like bout and being like, okay, I like, even if I had more ideas, I'm good. I'm going to just go be a brain dead player or something later for a while.
Yeah. I think probably last year was the closest I've gotten, just because we are in I'm in 3 campaigns right now, and I was GMing one and about to GM a second, and I'm like, I can't do 2 in a week, and like, yeah. But it kind of comes and goes. I think the fact that we will
like cycle through
campaigns relatively quick kind of freshens things up. We don't get too burnt out.
Yeah, I feel like at the current moment I am GMing 2 different campaigns, and that is feeling a little bit rough because it's just a lot of details to keep track of, and then you're like, wait, what's the plot for this one? What's the plot for this one?
Yep.
I've mixed up the plots. So I don't think that I will GM both continuously. I think I'm going to try to have to find like a chapter break for one of them, just so that someone else can DM for a little bit, just to, because I don't feel like I'm necessarily burnt out by playing, but the GMing tends to be a little bit more intensive.
It's a lot of overhead. I mean, when you're like really trying to do a good job and you're keeping notes and you're trying to keep the players involved, like it can be a lot.
Yeah.
So we talked about the moment you maybe thought about leaving it all behind. But let's focus on the moment where you wondered if you were smart enough to play this game. What is the dumbest decision you have made as a player?
Oh, there's so many though. It's hard to like
so many.
narrow it down.
Oh my gosh.
Dumbest decision.
Oh my gosh. I think like the most like horrifying dumb that I can think of is in Tyler's most recent campaign where we accidentally killed a good guy. That like, it like,
I didn't accidentally kill anyone.
Okay. Well, certain people in this room purposefully killed someone, and then we discovered later that they were not the bad guy that we thought they were. And so then my character had to have a whole existential crisis about killing people. But I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't see it. We didn't check. We didn't like roll 2 extra things.
Tyler was really like, smug about that too. It was annoying.
It was just like pinnacle planning, and as a GM who's only done adventure paths, and like the first half adventure path we played with that group, I like was just kind of winging it, and I didn't pull anybody's character in because it was like everybody's first session, or like first campaign. So the when we did the second half of the campaign and we're running through it, and I was actually pulling people's stories in, I was like, oh, this is the good parts of GMing. And that was the one where Ryan, I was messaging you like, this is what's gonna happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I think my dumbest decision was trusting Charles in an evil campaign.
I came out ahead in that.
You did come out ahead because you were on Charles's side. So
that was great.
Yeah, our friend Charles, we did an evil campaign, and if you ever do an evil campaign, anybody listening, make sure you all have the same goals. Because just agree
that everyone's going to die at the end of the campaign.
Or you all just got to be evil together. So it's like you can be evil to everybody else. You just can't be evil within the party. Because I had one of my favorite characters at the time, because I just built a really like interesting bard on that one with some cool mechanics. And Charles built a druid that this is 3.5 days, so you could just min-max the crap out of.
Druid was pretty strong.
Yeah, so he was just this like druid who wanted to burn down society to bring it back to nature. And I was one who wanted to rule society, and like 5 sessions in, he like his plans came to fruition, and I was just like very stupidly oblivious to the fact that he was like going to kill me. And so we had a battle, and like me and the other my 2 allies like took all the hits, and then at the end he goes, yeah, so I attack you.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, this is I know what he's doing. Oh no, I'm dying.
Yep. Man, Charles and I spent a lot of time plotting that, and it was really satisfying to pull off from our perspective. It was great.
Wait, so Ryan, you knew about it?
Oh yeah, I was playing, again, 3.5 shenanigans. I was playing a palm throw shuriken ninja. So I got like 35 attacks around or something absolutely stupid.
In Pathfinder, you have rogues and they do sneak attack. And if you never played 3.5, you could get sneak attack on every attack, and you could get like, it was 2 daggers per attack.
It was 2 per attack, and then I could do palm throw, which means you could throw like 3 shuriken per per equivalent. It was nuts.
And each one got the full sneak attack damage. It was stupid.
It was awesome.
And then Charles's AC was like 50, and everybody else's was like 23.
Yep.
It's weird.
I don't know. I feel like my dumbest thing was the entire campaign I played a Totemist back in 3.5.
Dude, Totemists were great.
Oh man, I played a bad Totemist. Basically, a Totemist is like a character that like uses other creatures as like power and like, abilities. It's very weird.
It's kind of like a spiritual medium person. Like you like.
So were you beholden to other people?
No, I just like I ended up like really not loving the like I was like I want to play this to try it, and then like 2 or 3 sessions in I was like I don't like this character.
Yeah.
So then I spent every subsequent session trying to get the character killed. And I even told the party like, you need to let the character die. I want to play something else. And they kept like saving this character. And at some point I'm like, what? Why do I just need to like walk away and like play a different character. I just feel so dumb. Like I'm not having fun.
So your problem was that you asked for them to help you die. You should have
just let it happen.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
All right, so Sam, you detailed in a previous episode a moment of brilliance where you used a feat perfectly to clear out a forest trap Ryan had set for you.
Yes.
And I always think those moments, it's kind of the player feeling of making a decision so good, it's like rolling a 20. So that one might be your proudest, but is there any other proud moments that you've had as a player where you just really felt like you played something perfectly?
I don't know if I would say perfectly, but there have been moments where I'm like, that was amazing and I'm glad I made that decision. Like in Tyler's campaign where I had my character like illusory disguise himself as a baby dinosaur to then
I forgot about that. That's amazing.
I think everybody at this table, Ryan was not on that campaign, but he was at that session.
Yep, I was.
Ryan was playing the dinosaur.
I was playing the dinosaur.
So we're doing this hex crawl, and one of the hazards that we come across is a dinosaur. So then my character is like, well, I'm going to pretend to be a baby dinosaur and lure the big dinosaur off so that everyone else can escape. And it was just so ridiculous. I was just so pleased with it because I don't think that Tyler anticipated that at all. And those are my most favorite moments when the GM looks at you like, what are you doing?
Where you get to surprise them.
Yes, but then they still let you do it. So
yeah, Tyler and Ryan, same question to you.
Come back to me. I'm not sure.
I will say, in Sam's most recent campaign, not the one we're playing in now, but the previous one with like all the undead stuff. In like the final battle, I like randomly had 3 or 4 different items that like pinpoint defeated every possible thing that Sam's boss needed. It's like, well, he's invisible. Well, I have a lantern of sea invisibility. Well, they have this like movement buff. Well, I have boots of like increased movement. And I basically just followed the boss around. I couldn't do any damage, but like I just kept pointing and like, he's right there.
I see you.
Everybody come get him. He's right there.
I take back my last question. That was the character I felt most dumb in.
The chimes.
Oh god,
that was so much fun though.
Yeah, but the person who homebrewed that class did it terribly.
Well,
anyway.
You know.
Anyway, okay. That was a good one. I would say I think for your current I guess your current campaign.
The one that we just need to do a finale.
Yeah, we need to do the finale. I feel I'm playing a thaumaturge in that one. And a thaumaturge just has so many like knowledges and little funky things you can do that like I don't have to play smart to like just be able to know everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like there are a lot of times where Ryan would be like, we have this, and I'm like, roll, okay, I know that.
Yeah, I got to the point where I'd just be like, Tyler, here's the monster like stat block. You're a level 20 thaumaturge, like you know all of its weaknesses, everything. Yeah. You can just like plan out from there. Go for it.
Ooh, my other one would also be in that same campaign where we have an artifact that's split into a bunch of different pieces, and I was able to use precise location to then figure out
that was really
where
good.
all the pieces were.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little unrelated, but like I feel like as we've gotten, I don't want to say older, and like more experience might not be the right word either, but just like our games have trended more towards like being narratively fun. I'll just like as a GM now, like not even really consider how the players are going to solve a problem and be like, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure. They're pretty smart. They'll figure it out.
So if you think about your ratio of dumb to proud moments, which is winning and by how large of a margin?
I I don't know. I feel like I'm probably close to 50-50. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of fun. Like, that was really great moments. And then I have times where it's like, we just are all laughing hysterically, or like something just did not go well. And
yeah, I feel like my dumb to fine moments are about equal. I don't have like the proud, like, yeah, I got it over on the GM too much. So I'm probably more on the dumb, just because since I've been GMing more, when I do get back to playing, I'm like, oh crap, I like to know everything. Oh, I'm dumb again.
Imperfect information is difficult.
Yeah, you go back to, I used to have all the power and now I'm just powerless.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably about a 50-50, but even when you're dumb, you're still having a great time. So it's like, it's 100% positive.
Well, I feel like all the campaigns we play, even, with all the different GMs, I don't think we have any like vindictive ones that'll just make you have a bad time. So like, even when you make dumb mistakes, it just like, we stumble our way forward, or it's not like, oh, you made a dumb mistake and you're going to ruin. So I feel like
time to murder your character.
Yeah, we all have fun with it.
So it might not stop you from making dumb decisions, but Tyler, I know one of the things you've talked about before is that you've had to work on developing backstories more for your characters. Could you talk about why developing the backstory is important to how you play?
Yeah, so me starting in my like D&D career was I cared about mechanics and I cared about dumb feat combos that can breaks builds and just go crazy. And then if people ask me for backstory, I'm like, I don't care, I don't know. But I think all that kind of switched when I played a character who was a changeling, and I was reading through like a comic at the time that was kind of like a comic version of Faust and Mephistopheles, and Chad was like, what's your character? I'm like, Faust. And like Chad kind of built the character in, like, kind of took from that history and built me kind of a backstory, and like I really kind of leaned into that dynamic. I've just noticed now, if I like really think about my backstory more as, what my character's motivations are, whatever, I just feel more engaged in the sessions. I think I was talking to you, Keisha, in one of my campaigns. I kind of had my like memories and my backstory, and I was like feeling really engaged. And then our characters were like our siblings, and until we kind of like built our backstory up a little bit more and like talked through it, I was just kind of like, I don't know. He's just fun. Like, he's just there. I don't know how to react. Like, I feel like the backstory helps me kind of get into the character and actually be able to to react well to things. Because otherwise I'm like, I don't know how my character feels about this, so I'm just not going to do anything. It makes
like the role-playing portion of it easier.
Yeah.
This is why half of my characters have the same personality.
And now you're playing the Gnome Brothers?
Yeah. So in that one, and Sam's
Rumbuckles.
the Rumbuckles. Yeah, and like talking through building the characters with each other, talking through the players kind of helps me engage in the day-to-day sessions because I know how my character would react.
I think Sam, to your point, because you were joking about how you always build the same character backstory, but I found
it's not the same backstory, but like I frequently end up in the same attitude of characters. I find myself frequently being like snarky women. And so it like I have to really think about it and like, how do I build a character that's not like sarcastic all the time? I'm doing better. Growth.
You are, yeah, growth.
Yeah, I think it's easier though to at least build a personality that you can lean into or that you enjoy. If it's something kind of too far outside of your realm, does it get difficult, or do you find yourself kind of slipping back into Sam more versus the character?
So I think the challenge, and I'm a theater person, so like I act in shows and things like that, but in that realm you have a script, so like you know exactly what your character is going to do because it's scripted for you. Whereas in roleplay games, you're like, okay, I have a premise for a character, so if I don't have like a solid grasp on what that character is going to do all the time, that is when it like becomes like default, like, and my default is like sarcasm. And I think it's, you just have to I think that's where the backstory becomes really important, because it does help you figure out why is my character doing something and what is the motivation right now and how is that going to inform what I do. But when I don't know, then I slide back into that default personality, which is not always the one that my character should have.
Yeah.
I mean, we have moments at the table too where it's everyone breaks character. And it's
yeah.
just completely a mess. Yeah.
I think I don't think any of our campaigns really lean into the we got to be in character and role play all the time.
Gosh,
we just have a lot of fun with it. But to be able to jump into those serious moments and actually kind of talk as characters.
And I feel we've had times too where we've done at least I know I have, where I've done something and then I've been wait, I don't actually think that was in character. Hold on, I would actually do something different.
Yeah.
Once you think about it for a minute. And luckily you guys are all nice enough that, you're yeah, that does make sense.
Sure.
Rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
I think too, when you start listening to podcasts where people are playing in the podcast, and a lot of times it's people who do have experience in voice acting or different kinds of improv, and they're so good at the role playing.
Oh my gosh, they're so
and you
good.
Start realizing, wow, I'm really, really bad at this.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything either related to how you're building the character backstory or how you think about role playing, where if you think of it from the perspective of somebody who thinks I'm not good at this or I don't really know how to do it, things that make it easier or less intimidating?
I think I said this a little bit, I think maybe last episode, but it's easier for me. I'm not very creative when it comes to backstories, just off the cuff, but I like taking kind of the skill feats and the general feats and the class feats and kind of creating a backstory back from that, because sometimes you'll see a cool feat and it's okay, why would my character have this? Oh, he might have this because he was a mercenary, or my friend or one of our friends Greg's campaign, I was a half orc and I had battle medicine. I'm okay, why would I have this? And it kind of I would just work my way back of I have this feat because at some point I learned X, so it kind of helped. The mechanics were there, and that kind of helped me inform. That's how I kind of think of the backstory.
So I'm going to go on a slight tangent. I had an acting teacher at one point who talked with us about how the best thing that you can hope for on stage is a moment of honesty. So I kind of think about that in every role play. What are the things that I as a person can connect to? So am I actually a person that's rolling around on an adventure with a sword? No. But have I ever been scared in my life? Sure. Have I ever been confident in my life? Absolutely. So for me, it's pulling out what are the parts of this character that I'm playing that I personally relate to. And I think it's easier when you're starting to pick a character that has a lot of things that you're yes, I understand that. So you might not have been in the situations, but if you're trying to figure out how do I role play something, what are the feelings that you can connect to in that to inform what you're doing?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Yeah. I for my campaigns, I make the rule that everyone has to come in with a connection to one of the other players. And I think that that's super valuable. And I always, at least now, try to do that in any campaign I play in too. Because having a partner in crime makes it so much easier to oh gosh, I don't know what I would do there. Hey Tyler, what are we doing here? And it's easier to play off of other people.
Well, and it makes it so much easier to have somebody so then you don't have to go through the normal beginning of campaign sessions. I got to learn about you. What's your name? What's all this stuff? To have somebody, it's oh yeah, we're friends or siblings or whatever.
Right.
You can work on the learning everybody else's stuff while having a fallback of oh yeah, we just chat.
Yeah,
it also helps give you motivation too, right? Because if you come in with that connection, you have somebody who maybe you're looking out for in the fights, or you can more naturally engage in the role playing too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, was it you that started the memories thing?
Yeah. I totally stole that though. That was not my idea.
Oh well, I really liked that.
So,
our group stole it from you,
Yeah.
and I assumed you came up
did
with
not
it, so
come up
you
with
might
that.
as well just take the
I
credit
mean, I
for
guess
it.
I can. I think I stole it from the Alexandrian.
Yeah, so the Alexandrian is a website that has just a bunch of different, like, kind of high level.
He just released a book. Yeah, it's like a
advice on GMing and stuff. But I think Memories has been one of the best ways to do backstories. And basically what it is it's like, come with 5 important memories of your life, of your character's life. So rather than like having all the backstory and thinking about paragraphs and all this stuff, it's like, oh, there are 5 kind of life-changing moments or like
critical
moments in your life. That's easier because you're just kind of like, oh, this is one moment in time, and then you can kind of build from there.
Yeah, and to be clear, half of that is I was super sick of reading 12 pages of backstory from certain people in our group who
Chad.
And to be clear, every time I've asked for Chad's memories, he still sends me multiple pages of backstory. But
we love you, buddy.
But he does it kind of narrows the focus down of like, here are the things that are critical to start, and then it all grows.
I just kind of think of one of my best memories of making memories was in the second of yours, where I played 1,000-year-old elf and then had memories from different centuries.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
It was also great that you could walk into any single place and I would have to roll and be like, do you know someone here?
Yeah, that was the family man. I had that was over my 1,000 years. I was the like great grandpa of the group, and I just had a family all over the country and all over Avestan. Oh, Othniel.
Yeah. No, we did it for our friend Greg's campaign, and what I really liked about it was, I think a lot of times you think backstory, you think kind of immediate backstory. You brush over the full history of the character, but you don't really put yourself in the mindset of how were they as a child and how were they as a teenager, or in Tyler's case, how were they over centuries.
Yeah.
But I think it gives more depth to the character.
Definitely.
Well, I think it helps to prevent the trope of like, who's your character? Both my parents are dead. If you have to, I mean, we definitely had lots of orphan characters, but
in Sam's current campaign, Tyler and I are siblings, and our parents are dead.
I mean, it still happens a lot.
Yeah, but they're dead together.
Well, they're dead together, and then there's like, here are other things that define my character besides my parents being dead.
Yeah.
So switching gears to the GM side of the house, I know being a GM is something a lot of players are intimidated to try. So if you think especially early GM campaigns you ran, which I guess, Ryan, maybe not all the way back to middle school.
Sure.
But what was something that was easier than you expected, and what was something that was harder than you expected?
Oh, I can go quick on this one. So I GM'd for a little while, and then I made it a point. I was like, I'm going to GM a campaign of new players. So I made sure that it was like all people who had never played any kind of RPG before. And it's a totally different mentality. Like, I remember being so frustrated. We're like, for our group, if I was like, there's a 20-foot chasm, I'd have 20 different ideas from the parties to be like, I have rope, I have a ladder, I have fly, like all these different options. For the new players, I specifically remember being like, there's a 20-foot chasm, you need to get across it. And then like crickets and being like, oh my God, like I need to do so much of I need to put more effort into like describing the situation, because like these players can't fill in the gaps as easily as the people who you normally play with. And it wasn't a big deal, but it was like definitely all of a sudden that like flicked the switch of like, oh, this is how this works.
Yeah.
So my first campaign that I GM'd, I think, was I did a homebrew off of a book series that Tyler and I have read.
Yeah.
And so what was nice and easier about that is because there was a whole book series, like any like lore questions about the world, like I could answer because I'd read the book so many times. So that part was like, oh yeah, I totally know what's happening in this world. I know it like the back of my hand. The even hard part about it is there's always something that you haven't thought of that someone else will think of. And so having to like very quickly decide how you're going to proceed with something without being able to like plan it out when someone asks a question was like, oh no. So
how do you get to that point, Sam? So if you think about like having to think on your feet quickly, right, as a GM, what are like some tips that have made you improve there?
I usually just do an accent.
Yeah.
When in doubt, in accent.
Or I just keep talking is really what happens. Because usually it'll be like with an NPC and someone will be like, oh, I'm going to ask about this random thing to the bartender. And then I'm like, well, okay, the bartender is just going to keep talking until the bartender figures out the answer to that question.
Yep.
Or your NPCs become evasive and then you're like, cool, you're going to have to roll some checks while I think about the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I feel like you come up with like different ways to slow it down if you need the time to think about what you want to do with it.
Yeah, I think for me, my first experience as a player was in a world that basically Ryan and Chad created from scratch.
It was a place.
And I think it's awesome to play in those worlds. And I think there's a lot of really fantastic GMs who build entire worlds, and that's their like enjoyment.
The
out
world
of it.
building is the hobby. Yeah.
And so when I started trying to GM, my thought was like I had to build something that was unique and like build a world, a homebrew, because that's just what I'd known and that's what everybody else did. So I'm like, oh, that's just what I have to do. And so I think I've probably started GMing like, I don't know, a handful, 5 different campaigns that would go like 3 sessions and then be done.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't have the world building chops and I don't want to have them either.
It's not what you do.
It's like I don't enjoy that. I like the big ideas. I like making the campaign thoughts of like even our episodes.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a lot harder to think of the entire story and plot than I expected. But as a GM who's now just kind of leaned into adventure paths, which are fantastically written by Paizo anyway, like everything's written there for you. And so being able to take what's there and then modify it for the players is what's kind of become my like, oh, this is my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they have the one-offs that I know a lot of people in our group have done to kind of do an entry level into what is GMing like, of just doing one Pathfinder Society, which is also really nice.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people who look at GMing and are like, oh, I have to build an entire story myself, and that's a lot of work. I would encourage you, if you're any interested at all in like running a game, or if you're terrified and you don't think you can handle it, pick up an adventure. Pick up a Pathfinder Society scenario. They have the one-shots that you can do. You can and they just lay everything out for you. So you can just kind of read and run.
Or even like, it doesn't need to be a Paizo thing either.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
There are lots of very, very short one-shots, like Honey Heist. I've played Honey Heist before, and it's like literally like one page. Every character has like 1 or 2 stats, and you're just trying to steal honey because you're a bunch of bears.
That's amazing.
And it's like 0 prep, 0 expectation of like success or failure. Like you just try it. You can get a feel for what it's like to be in charge of it. And then you can start to identify like, oh, that was fun, or I never want to do that again.
Yeah, that's true.
So this probably differs if it's a homebrew or a Paizo campaign, but how long does it take for you to prepare a session for the week?
Originally or now?
I guess either. So maybe like if somebody was thinking about getting started, what might they expect at the beginning? And once they're more established, how might it even out?
I mean, I think I used to spend a lot more time in prep.
I think it's hard to different people. And it also depends on how people run things. Yeah, when I'm doing adventure paths, if it's a story-driven adventure, like I'm running Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, we're on a break, but when I was running that, I'd probably spend a couple days kind of reading through the material, making sure I knew everything. But I'm also running Abomination Vaults right now in the Foundry module, and I like prep for 30 minutes because I just look at like the rooms they could possibly adventure in, because it's more just kind of like a dungeon crawl.
Yeah, I think for me, so the stuff that I usually GM is either homebrewed or it's still in Golarion, but then like I'm determining the plot. So I usually do like the most prep before the campaign starts, where it's like, who are my players? What's the plot? Where are we trying to go? And then like the session to session stuff, I tend to like probably not prep as much as I should, to be honest. But I usually go into it with like, what needs to happen and what's the encounter that we're hitting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually maybe like 30 minutes, but I also make a lot of stuff up off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. Surprise. But like, I mean, most of like the NPCs, like I have a general idea of like whatever, but like I do not prep every single bartender or rando that people talk to. They all just get made up on the fly.
That's what random tables are for.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I think related to that, Sam, one thing I don't know if people always realize about jamming if they don't do it is that you do a lot of role playing through NPCs, which I know you enjoy and you're very good at. You have a lot of fun accents.
I do.
Is playing all the NPCs, I know it's enjoyable for you and easy, but is it always easy, or what are ways that you kind of have to encompass all of these side characters that come across?
I would probably say I'm, of the three of us, the worst at it because I hate doing accents.
You don't have to do
You don't have to do accents.
There's just a bad premise that gets set because that's how I differentiate people in my brain, is how they sound different.
Yeah.
So
with Adventure Pass, you get a lot of NPCs, but sometimes you just make up a character and like, I don't know, it's sometimes just fun to be like, this is Steve. And Steve is like, he's a guy and just jumps in, and like those are the characters that like people will latch on to, and then you just kind of like,
Steve is the 5th best guard on watch today.
yeah, and then it's like, well, we want to keep talking to Steve, and then you're like, okay, well now I'm gonna build him a backstory. So like,
yeah, I mean, I like playing the NPCs. I think it's fun. I mean, I think the big transition for me was like I stopped writing everything and trying to predict. I do resource prep now, so like if I know the players are going into an area, I'll like pre-prep like 2 or 3 NPCs. And it's like, okay, doesn't matter who they actually talk to, it's going to be one of those 3 NPCs. Like, here are 3 personalities.
that's fair.
And then the first one they encounter is going to be the angry one. And the second one is going to be the helpful one. Like, it, you know.
That's a good tactic.
Yeah, I think that helps. I also do funny voices. My accents are way worse than Sam's. They all just kind of trend towards crappy, like, Russians sort of. It's bad.
I think burned into my brain is the one time that we were doing a campaign. We were at somebody's house. It was back in college, and Ryan was GMing, and I think we did like 3 sessions of this campaign and then never played it again. But I just remember there was a time where my character was a cleric and talking to a blacksmith, and for whatever reason, the blacksmith had Minnie Mouse's voice.
Oh my gosh, I do vaguely remember that.
And so there was a point where like either we pissed off the blacksmith or something, and there was just like a 2-minute Minnie Mouse rant from Ryan, and we were just dying laughing. And he's like deadpanning the like, how dare you like talk about my...
Well, I also really love what happened with Gildias.
Oh my god, Gildias just became a caricature of himself.
There was a character in Ryan's campaign
who, to be clear, is from the adventure path that I used for inspiration.
We're currently running through a modified Tyrant's Grasp that Ryan's doing. Yeah. And like, I don't even know what you did to him, but he's now Skeletor.
Well, he started out as like a vaguely inflection-y in his voice, like, yeah, when his voice went up and down, and he just turned into Skeletor. So now, like, literally every time Gildias appears, hello, it is me, Gildias. Like,
and all of us are all like, Gildias.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, I don't know, it's almost part of the fun. Like, that was not a decision by me. It was like, I introduced the character, and then someone at the table was like, that's Skeletor. And I was like, oh,
it is now.
Okay, now it's Skeletor, apparently.
Yeah.
So back on the spicy side of things, what is the most annoying thing players do?
Annoying.
Look at their phones. And this is a person, I do this as well. I have tried to print off my character sheets more.
Yeah.
Because it is so easy for me and to just be like on my phone on Path Builder and then get distracted and be like, sorry, what's happening?
Mm-hmm. I do think it's really hard, especially like virtual campaigns, to not get distracted. Like, I've definitely had other stuff going. And for my first, when we were lower level for you guys, I had you guys know devices.
Yeah.
Level 20 is really hard to do without a device. So
you end up with a lot of pieces of paper.
Oh, devices came back for the higher level stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't find that annoying so much as like just an inevitability of technology. I don't know.
It is, but like I think it's hardest when you're kind of giving talking to one person and everybody else kind of checks out.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
like my most frustrating because usually the information is relevant to everybody,
Yeah.
but other people are talking and I'm like, I don't want to have to repeat this.
What I was going to say is looking at the phone more annoying than like the side conversations?
For me, no, because I'm like, sure, they could still be paying attention. I don't know. And then then I'm like, well, at that point, like, I'm like, if you missed it, you missed it. Sorry.
I think it depends on the side conversation too, because like specifically for Chad and I, like our backstories intertwine, and for Sam's, we've had a couple of like entirely in character conversations while Sam is expressing critical information, and then both Chad and I look back at the DM and it's like, we like legitimately are having a side conversation and we're not paying attention. So what just happened?
If it's in character,
And
then
it's
I
totally in
don't
character.
mind as much.
Yeah.
It's more when it's like not related, or if it's like I'm talking through a mechanic or something. I'm like, if two characters are legitimately talking to each other and like not listening to, the bartender explain where they need to go to the third member of the party, like that I don't mind as much because that's more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just, oh no, they're all gonna ask me in 10 seconds
Yeah.
what I just said.
I mean, that literally happened this week with Sam's
did.
character. She's like, I have a cough. If you guys do not stop talking, I cannot get through this session.
I did feel very guilty where you're like, please don't make me talk over you. I'm in pain.
I've had a cold this week. It's probably still sounding like I have a cold, but it like that's when I get the most frustrated is I'm like, I don't have my vocal capacity.
Yeah.
We were all very shamed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not even a major annoyance, but like I like to keep things moving, and also we can't strap in for an 8-hour Saturday session every week.
Yeah.
So like when it's like, okay, we need to pause because like somebody doesn't have their spell prepared for the next encounter, and then like I need to go look up this esoteric rule. Like I don't care. Let's just make a call and like
Yeah,
let's keep playing.
I think
It's
that's
fine.
the other thing is like in combat, if it gets to a person, it's like I don't have a turn prepped, then it's like, oh god. Especially if you're like a spellcaster or something, and then it's like when a player's like, I cast the spell, I'm like, okay, what do I roll? They're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, okay, what's the spell do? They're like, I don't know, I gotta read it. I'm like, why did you cast the spell if you didn't know what it was gonna do?
Yeah.
They're like, I know it does damage. I'm like, cool, tell me the details.
So conversely, what is something helpful players do or something that you wish they did?
Tyler's my backup GM, basically. When I run campaigns, I know Tyler knows the rules as good or better than me. So I can focus on other things sometimes, and then I'll be like, yeah, like you're prone, and then I can keep going, and if the person doesn't know what prone is, Tyler will like lean over and be like, prone means it's a minus.
Yeah, having a rules lawyer that isn't gonna like
you're a good level of rules lawyer. You know
Yeah.
what the rule is,
Yeah.
but you don't like.
I'll step in and be like, hey, yeah, here's the thing. Yeah, I think just knowing what you're gonna do on your turn is so helpful, and knowing your character.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the best thing a player can do is know what your character can do. I don't care if you do not understand any rule outside of what your character can do. If you can master that, if you're a new player, if you're a veteran, like if you master what your character can do, like that is infinitely helpful for a GM, because then as a GM, you're like, I don't have to think about like, oh, actually that's not the case.
Yeah, depending some of our more complicated encounters, like the mental burden, you're like, oh my god, there's like 6 moving parts here right now. I really just need you to tell me if you attack or like cast a spell, like please.
Yeah, the first campaign we did, Tyler, you GM'd and you handheld a lot, and we would just, I think, say, I do this, and look at you, and you would describe to us what that meant and how it would interact in that scenario. Or are you sure that that's what you want to do? I don't think that's what you're looking to do here. But yeah, there was a moment that you're like, I'm not responsible for your characters anymore.
Yeah, and like obviously, as in like playing with new characters or new players, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once you're on your second character, I'm like, I'm done holding it.
I love when people take notes and like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It is really helpful.
Because you're
as a
like,
GM.
oh my gosh, you remembered what happened, and I don't have to like go back and recap it. Like, just Keisha gets an extra hero point because she's done so great with our campaigns.
I love player recaps. I think it's so much fun when a player is like, here's what we did last session. You're like,
amazing.
oh, yes.
Keisha's been doing newscaster as...
This is where Felicity Flameweather
It's so
came
good, though.
from. But yeah, I will say it related to like looking at your phone and side conversations, like taking notes helped me stay
Connected.
really
Yeah.
engaged in what was happening, even if my character wasn't there or wasn't interacting at that point. I was still capturing it, so it makes me more involved in the session.
Yeah, and going from like Greg's campaign to Sam's campaign, I like switched journals that I've been writing notes in, and like I wrote a lot for Greg's campaign, and then I didn't like the journal I was writing in, so I'm like, I need a new one. So I didn't write it for Sam's campaign, and so now I do feel that like since I'm not taking notes, I'm a lot less.
Tyler did buy new journals, though, to take notes with. So.
I need to just open them.
So if you had to pick, do you prefer to be the GM or a player?
Definitely the player. It stresses me out significantly less.
Yeah.
I like GMing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like GMing.
Yeah.
I like to have a palette cleanse and play, but I prefer to GM.
I think I'm 50-50. I think if you asked me last like 2 years ago, I would say playing definitely, but like I've kind of gotten to the point where if I'm not GMing now, I get the itch and I want to do it. I like both equally. I'm halfway in between each of you.
So last question. You've all played with each other for years. What is a way you've seen the other two grow and improve either as a player or as a GM?
Ooh.
Who wants to go first? Each person has to give one for each of us?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is so many things in my brain.
Okay, I can do Sam.
Ha.
Sam's is very prominent to me. Sam has become much more confident
Aww.
when playing characters and GMing. Just in general, like, even your first campaign was like, you just like definitely did not exude confidence when doing it. And I feel like your player characters also did not exude confidence even when they should have been confident. Compare that to now where Sam's over here like roundhouse kicking people off of like trees and just crushing it on a daily basis. Yeah, a huge difference.
Yeah.
Aww.
I would say the same thing about Sam. Like
Whatever, you can't take Ryan.
You're married to her. Pick a new one.
No, I do. Okay, so for Sam, I would say I remember trying to get her to start to play with us.
Oh.
Was rough because she had a bad experience with D&D with a previous boyfriend.
Well, I was like, I had to listen to this guy talk about D&D all the time, and it sounded like real intense, and it was one of those like person who's been playing a character for like 5 years, and I was like, this seems insane. I do not want to play this insane game.
But yeah, kind of the same. Like I feel like you would build characters for the story, and then just kind of like, here's my character's backstory, here's all the stuff. But like when it came to playing the game, you're just kind of like, whatever. Like I don't.
Accurate.
Yeah. So like that's kind of changed too. It's just like you've grown from I don't care what my character does in combat, but here's her backstory.
Would you say I'm more well-rounded?
Yes, very well rounded as a player.
And then I can do Tyler too.
Okay.
I mean, Tyler's already kind of shared it, but like, it's fun having someone else who can share GM brain with me.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler definitely shares GM brain with me now.
Yeah.
Like the 3D printers live in Tyler's basement, and like just like being able to talk on that different mechanical side of like ooh, but if we make an encounter like this and we like do this sneaky thing, like definitely a different perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Tyler's plot tie-ins, because like, again, what you were talking about before, like, just, okay, I'm gonna like GM this like straight, but like I've really loved some of the creative leaps that you've taken with like pulling characters in and doing things with the campaigns that are unexpected, and like I'm just like, I'm so proud of you, the plots are so good.
Let's see, for Ryan, I feel like I have not played as a player with you that much.
We really
honestly.
haven't. Yeah.
Because usually it's Ryan GMing. So as a player, that hasn't changed much. Honestly, I feel like both of us getting excited for the world of Golarion has been a cool transition.
It has been fun, yes.
Because, like I said, Ryan used to build his own homebrew stuff, and then like I don't think we did a campaign setting until Golarion.
Yeah.
At all. And just seeing kind of the richness of the world kind of grow with your already like really good storytelling to tie into the world. Because I think there's some level of, you have a homebrew and you can flesh it out to an extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having a campaign setting just like really kind of flourishes everything.
It makes it so much easier. You can be like, ooh, who is this person's noble house?
Yeah.
Searches the wiki. Oh, there's the noble house.
Yeah, so I think playing in your games when it was homebrew versus Golarion has really just kind of fleshed things out, and I think in a really cool way.
Yes.
So I feel like this is hard because like Ryan has always just seemed very good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. You really know what you're doing. So I think more recently it's just been fun to watch Ryan as a player since you do GM for us so often. So it's fun to see how the choices are different between like when you're GMing something and when you're playing through. So that's just been fun to watch, and I really have enjoyed your character dynamics in the current campaign.
My character is something.
I will say, going back to Ryan's character about like being a GM versus being a player, it is really interesting if you ever GM, just seeing the difference. We joke now, our Greg in our campaign, since he's been a
GM.
Yeah, he was a brutal GM. I mean, in a good way. He challenged us. But since he's gone back to being a player, he like takes the GM side all the time. He's like,
it's really funny.
Don't let them get away with that. They don't deserve it.
No, or like if you're rolling really well as the GM and you feel bad about it, Greg's like, don't feel bad.
Greg's like, really, just kill us. It does like going on the other side of the table just really changes your mentality of both how much effort it actually takes, and then also just like really gives you a good perspective of like, oh, having fun as a GM is different.
It's totally different. Like you as a GM can like sit there and actively like outwardly be like, I'm going to kill you all, but inwardly you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so pumped. Like they don't know that it only has 3 hit points left, and like, oh, Tyler just missed. Oh, it's still only on 3 hit points. Like, you're like inside is just so different. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank our 3 adventurers for their time. And this is Felicity Flameweather signing off. Burn bright, Golarion.
Well, thanks again to Felicity Flameweather, aka our friend Keisha, for that amazing interview. Keep up the good work in all your Golarion news reporting. But before we go, we have a big announcement to make. After a few people reached out to us about it, the Tabletop Travel Guide officially has a Patreon. Now, before we get into the details, one thing we want to be clear on is that we're not going to start hiding our content behind paywalls. We all have jobs. We have no illusion that we're going to quit those jobs and become podcast millionaires. But that being said, we do have some equipment and upkeep cost as we produce these episodes, so we've set up a Patreon for those that like what we're doing and want to throw a couple bucks our way to go towards some of the podcast costs. We do want to give something back to the supporters, though, so we have a few different tiers with hopefully some cool goodies. I also want to give out a shout out to listener Jason K. We had a pretty good email exchange, and he had some good reward thoughts that we kind of bounced back and forth, and it kind of helped inspire some ideas, and everything was just very encouraging. So he also ended up being our very first patron, so thanks again, Jason. It really means a lot to us. Okay, on to the tiers. So first up, we have the $2 Tabletop Surveyor tier, where we'll put your name on our wall of supporters on our website, and you'll have our eternal gratitude for supporting what we're doing. Next up, at the $5 Tabletop Folklorist tier, in addition to the name on the website, you'll also be able to vote on some of the off-week episodes we'll be doing. As we come into 2024 and we continue to produce episodes weekly, we want to try to give you guys some ability to choose what places we spend a little more time in, since we are pretty high level with our current episodes. So at the $5 tier, you'll be able to vote on which ones we kind of dive a little bit deeper into. In addition, we'll be releasing some of the banter we have while recording that doesn't make it into the episodes. Depending on the episode, it might be longer or shorter based on how much we go off topic, but we'll be releasing that as well to the Folklorist tiers. Finally, if you support us at the $10 Lore Master tier, in addition to the previous rewards, we'll be reaching out to one patron a month to send us a character for the campaign/character portion of our mainline episodes. When we pick a patron, we'll send out a communication to let you know where we'll be traveling, and send a form to get some information on the character you'd like to have come along with us in whatever campaign we think of that episode and fit them into the party. We'll also put your character sheet and name on the episode page for that week. Our current plan is to do this once a month, but we'll readjust if we get a lot of interest in this tier. we just think it'd be cool to have some of your characters and some of your ideas come along with us on our campaigns. So, like most things we've been doing this year, we're new to the whole Patreon thing, so hopefully these rewards feel pretty cool. You can find a link to the Patreon on our website, Support Us page, or search Tabletop Travel Guide Podcast on Patreon, and you should see our page with our normal logo. All that being said, if you want to support us, that's awesome, but if you don't, that's totally cool as well. We're not going to stop making content if we don't make a threshold or anything, and we're still going to be releasing all of our normal content on the podcast and on YouTube, so there's no pressure at all to support us. The fact that you're all here on this journey with us is amazing, and we appreciate all of you coming with us on our travels, and we're having a great time. So anyway, thanks for listening. That's all for the episode this week, and safe travels.